So part of the reason that I wanted to do this particular podcast is because I've seen some of the things that you posted on your social media, like on your Facebook, like different dating challenges.
But what's so crazy is that people think I'll be bitter about it. It's actually funny. But they're because they're like, well, I guess we can save this for the conversation, but I don't be sad when I post them. I just post it because I think it's hilarious, because people will do that and they think that they're bringing me down, but they're actually bringing me up. Because it doesn't make me sad. It's like, it's your loss, because I know I'm fucking great. I survived the fucking full amputation and cancer, and I'm here to talk about it. So what do I got to be pissed off about it? I mean, people like what they like. I just think it's interesting that somebody will have a problem with me being an amputee, but then you'll fuck with somebody who's doing meth.
This is very personal work for me.
Politics.
I believe I was called to tell my story, use my voice, be a voice for the community, to speak to and for a community of people that's been ignored, denied, overlooked.
Religion.
This is my life's work.
Religion.
I want to use words to uplift, heal, inspire, encourage.
Do something different. Every Monday at 10.
Good day, thinkers, thought leaders, progressives, and dreamers. I'm Craig, the writer Stewart, and this is So Much to Say. These are my thoughts in my voice on black shit, white shit, gay shit, and everything in between. So today I have a friend of mine. We've known each other for some time, and we met back in the 90s. But I wanted to have you on the show because, and I was going out of my way to make this happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I kept texting you saying, okay, listen, can you do it on this day?
No, it was like, what's going on?
Right. Because I noticed, like, on your social media, on your Facebook, you write about your experience being an amputee.
Right.
So when did you first learn that you were going to lose a leg?
Well, actually, I lost a hip.
Okay.
Most people don't know that my surgery, I'm cut, half of my hip is removed.
Okay.
And I found out in August of 2014. I knew I had a tumor in my right femur, but for 2 years, the doctors in LA were like, oh, you'll be fine, it's benign, you can live with it the rest of your life. So I believed them. And then for some reason, the pain just got worse and worse and excruciating. And I was like, this is not right. So my mom was like, you need to come to Michigan. And I got a second opinion. And next thing I know, I found out I had chondrosarcoma.
And what is that?
It's a very rare bone cancer.
Okay.
Very rare. And I had to lose my leg.
So are there symptoms for that specific cancer?
Nope.
So there was nothing that was going on before that, like where your health had changed and you noticed anything?
Other than the tumor, that was it. I mean, I did notice, when I look at pictures like now, from the past, I noticed that I was very thin, but then I was like, well, I lost all this weight. I was amazing. Not knowing that I was dying and didn't even know it.
So how much time had elapsed from the doctor in LA to the point that you went to the doctor in Michigan?
The last time I saw a doctor in LA was June, and then I went and got a second opinion in August. Because I was working on a show for
So just
Fox.
about 2 months.
Yeah, because I was working on a 6-week sneak peek with Fox. And I couldn't leave the job because I was like, I don't want to leave all this money.
Right. So that's why it took the 2 months.
Exactly.
So was there an opportunity to change things? If perhaps you had gone sooner, would the outcome have been different?
Oh my God, there's even more to the story. The doctor when I got the second opinion in Michigan, because that's where I ended up going, I didn't want my leg to be amputated. My ego got in the way. And I was like, oh no, y'all crazy as hell. Like, I'm a photographer, I travel the world. Are you out of your fucking mind? You know? And so I was like, well, how long do I have? And the lady was like, well, October, November is pushing it. So I was like, I'm going to pray about it and see what happened. And then I eventually went and got a third opinion in New York. they said they were going to free me of cancer and save my leg.
Okay.
So I was like, oh my God. But I went through so much anxiety from that the tumor just kept growing from stress. And they came back in and they were like, we're sorry to tell you that you're now about to hit stage 3. And if you don't
remove
your leg, we're going to have to remove your colon, half your bladder. You're going to have a colonoscopy bag for the rest of your life, and we're going to have to shorten your urethra. And I was like, what? And I just saw that visual, and I was just like, you know what, let's just do it.
So had anyone else in your family had this kind of cancer?
Nope. My mom's mother at the time, 25 years ago, she had ovarian cancer, and that was the only cancer that we knew of ever in our family. And then here, 25 years later, here I am with bone cancer. So I thought that was bizarre.
So what was your first thought when, not so much when you first got the prognosis, but the last one when they said, okay, it's stage 3. What was your thought when there was absolutely no other option other than removing, you said part of your hip and your leg? What were the first thoughts?
That's a very good question. I was numb. I really, and I joke about it now, but I literally thought Ashton Kutcher was going to come in and say,
right, okay.
Because I was like, this is insane.
And it was just your mind trying to understand it, really, yeah.
I was like, why is this happening to me? And so I didn't have an outlet because I didn't know any other amputees. So I went to Facebook, and I did a video with my mother, which is still on Facebook. And I was like, I just want to let you guys know that I found out that they are not going to be able to save my leg, and I'm going to lose my leg. And I was like crying, and I was like, why is this happening to me? What does all this mean? And it went viral. And it was seen by thousands of people from around the world, and had thousands of messages. And of course you had the Christian zealous people telling me, you need to pray more and all that. And I'm like, y'all don't know how much praying I've done.
Right.
And it was scary. It was terrifying. And I was just numb at that point.
And so was your mom in the room when you found out that you were going to have it removed?
Yes, she was there with me. I was in the hospital at that time because at that point I had excruciating pain, and they checked me into the hospital. And my mom was there when I found out, because I flew her in from Detroit to be there with me, because she was like, you sure you don't want me to be there with you? And I was like, oh no, I have like...
So you were really going to go by yourself?
Yeah, because I used to live in New York, and then I was like, oh, I have tons of friends,
okay,
they'll be there for me. And my mom said she went to bed that night, and she said God spoke to her and said, you need to be there with your son, like something is up, not knowing that, this was going to happen.
So what are some of the things that you had to relearn? Because there have been instances where, you know how sometimes you might jam a finger, or you may cut a finger or a toe, stub a toe. You don't really consider how much that one toe or that one finger impacts or impairs your ability to move or to walk. So what are some of the things that you had to relearn, or things that perhaps we all take for granted?
That's a very good question. The number one thing that I had to relearn was to poop.
Wait a minute, what?
Because I had a temporary colonoscopy bag.
Okay.
And they put it on, after the surgery. Well, during the surgery, when I woke up, I had a colonoscopy
okay.
bag.
So you didn't know going into the surgery that you were going to have that? Okay.
No, when I woke up in intensive care, I had a brace on my left arm. I had a compression sock on my left leg. My leg was gone, so I had 2 drains going into the stump, a catheter in my penis, a colonoscopy bag, a thing going down my throat, a thing up my nose, and IV.
Oh, wow.
All at the same time.
Right.
And it was a lot. It was a lot. And
so what was your first thought the first time you looked down at the stump? And I'm using your word, stump.
It was hard for me to look at it.
So would you avoid looking at it?
Of course. Because it was new to me. And the doctors would come in, 5 o'clock in the morning every day to change the bandage, because the nurses weren't allowed to do it.
Why is that?
Because they wanted to they came in there literally every every morning to squeeze the stump to push any extra
fluid
out.
Okay.
And it was excruciating pain. And
yeah, because it's still
right.
it's still an open wound.
Exactly. So they had to check the bandages and see how it was healing and all
And making
that
sure, I guess, the bandages weren't healing inside the flesh.
Exactly. And it was a lot. It was a lot because it was a 16-hour surgery.
So how long were you actually in the hospital
39
after?
days.
39 days.
Yeah, 39 days.
And so when you're discharged from the hospital, are you able to walk with
Well,
crutches or
most
something?
people don't know that when I had the surgery, I had to do physical therapy 3 days after a full amputation. And
3 days after?
3 days.
So if you couldn't even barely handle them pressure.
I was still in pain.
Okay.
And I was like, what are y'all talking about? And it was like, you have to get up out the bed because the medicine that you're on is so strong, it's relaxed all of your muscles.
Yeah.
And if you don't get up and breathe into this machine, you're gonna get your lungs are gonna collapse. And you're gonna have pneumonia and you're gonna die.
So the physical therapy at that stage was just breathing exercises?
I had to breathe through this plastic thing where they see how
how strong you're,
And then I had to get up out of the bed. Well, no, they wanted me to sit at the edge of the bed for 20 minutes a day.
A day,
And
okay.
it was a lot. And then eventually I had to, walk with a walker with the catheter still in my...
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, this is bizarre. But to go back to what you were saying earlier, when the number one thing that I had to learn that I found interesting was to poop. Mm-hmm. Because when you have a colonoscopy bag, all of your poop comes in that bag.
Into that bag, right, which is off to your side.
Exactly. And so they had to reconnect, my intestine, and I had to do a lot of, like, laxatives and stuff like that, and I forgot the Colace, to trick my body, and I'm still dealing with that, like, still to this day, to kind of get a rhythm.
In terms of the actual function of using the bathroom?
Because originally, when I used to be pre-surgery, I would get up in the morning, and my body would say, go use the bathroom.
Right. And
then now I have to go to the bathroom and go to the kitchen, and I will get 16 ounces of cold water with a half a lemon.
Okay.
And then that kind of
pushes it through.
Yes, it kind of cuts it out. And
so you don't still have the colostomy bag?
No, that was hell, no.
Right. Because, the only experience or knowledge that I really have of that, I used to work with a guy who had Crohn's disease.
Okay.
And so for those who are listening and may not know, it's like when your, I think it's your small intestine start to shrink. The point is, it's either the small or the large intestine, they start to shrink.
Right.
And so you need help using the restroom. And so one of the challenges that he faced was he had just come out of, he had been diagnosed for some time at that point by the time I met him, but he was going through a breakup around the time that I met him. So one of the challenges or concerns that he had was, how does he share that with somebody he's dating? How does he unrobe the first time, take his clothes off?
And that I'm very, very close to, who actually has colonoscopy bags, and his is permanent. And I asked him the same thing. And, because I don't want to be ignorant about it, because people say ignorant stuff to me.
To you, right.
And I'm like, how do you date? And he was like, I never take my shirt off.
And see, that's part of the reason I wanted us to have this conversation too, because this can be a sensitive conversation. But I think the only way that we learn from each other or learn what's a hot button word or whatever is if we broach the conversations. That's the case whether you're talking about gay people and trans people, or heterosexual people and trans people, or heterosexual people and gay people, or black people and white people. And I think that oftentimes we avoid the difficult conversations because there's this fear of sounding ignorant or being insensitive. And the only way, though, to kind of learn is to kind of take that risk of sounding ignorant or making, saying the wrong thing.
That's why I never get mad when little kids see my leg and my prosthetic in there. Like, oh my God, mommy, and then parents are like, no. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Because you want to educate them early.
Right.
And they were like, "Oh, what happened to your leg?" And then I'll like kneel a little bit, and I said, "Oh, I lost my leg through bone cancer, but I'm cancer free, and I have a dope. So just call me the Bionic Man." And they love that.
Right. So you were saying that your friend has a colostomy bag, and he keeps his shirt on when he's dating. So like,
It's not when he's dating. When he becomes intimate,
he keeps the shirt on.
Yeah, he keeps his T-shirt on.
And so just out of curiosity, like no one ever says, "Well, take your shirt off." Like what? Because I mean, the reality is it's on your side. So even if you're touching a person, like you can feel it.
I don't know how he makes it work, but he said he never takes that shirt off because he just doesn't feel it. It's not as sexy at all. And I was like, I can relate to you because he helped me get through it. Because I only have mine on from November, the end of November till April, the end of April, and it was a lot. You had to shave because my hair would grow, and you had to put it on there every day, and then I didn't know if when you ate a lot of roughage, it goes through your system really quick, and then it makes you gassy. And then there were times when I would be so exhausted because I was only 135 pounds, and I just did not want to get up and change that bag because it would produce all that air, and sometimes it would burst.
Really?
It burst like maybe 3 times. But luckily, it didn't get over
Any,
over the place.
yeah.
It just burst to the point where the air
Came out, but everything
so
stayed contained.
Exactly.
Right.
So I was very fortunate with that. But man, my mom.
So well, you didn't wear yours permanently. You only had it temporarily. But did you have to carry like extra bags? I guess if you have to change them.
Because my friend, he has both legs and all that stuff. So he would go to the gym and all that stuff. So he does.
So he has to carry extra colostomy bags to
he
switch
does.
them out.
Sometimes he does, but sometimes he don't because once you put a fresh one there, it's good.
Okay.
But I didn't. I mean, I was after surgery when my mom and I were in the hotel. We were still going to the movies and stuff like that, which was literally right across the parking lot. So I didn't have to change. But every night it was a hassle.
Yeah.
When I would go out to eat and then it would fill up.
Yeah.
And then actually you don't have to change them because you change them. At least I had the newer ones. He still has the older ones. It's set up where you can dump it.
Okay.
So that was.
So when you say dump it, you go to like a restroom and just dump it into a toilet.
And that was hell. Because I'm 6'4".
Yeah.
So I'm like, how the hell am I gonna?
Without a bunch of splash.
Oh my God, it was the worst. Because I would sit on the toilet backwards to dump it. Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible.
So take us to when you got home. When you finally got home after 39 days of being in the hospital.
I wasn't able to go home. They didn't allow me to go home because I still had to have cleanup surgery. I still had to have the colonoscopy bag removed. I still had to make sure that I was still cancer free. So they put my mother and I in a hotel because I was like, man, I'm going to have to use up all of my savings. Like, oh my God. And
so did you have to pay for the hotel?
No.
So who pays for this?
2 things happened. A friend of mine set up a GoFundMe.
Okay.
That I didn't want to do because I thought I was begging.
Do you still have it in place?
The GoFundMe? No, I met
you met your goal.
Met the goal plus
Exceeded it.
$5,000
Okay.
extra in private donations from like some of my celebrity friends. And the hospital that I went to was a private hospital, and they have social workers on each floor. And they were like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about anything." They're rich people who donate money
to take care of people that have to come to that.
Money. So they would give us $1,500 here, $500 there, and then when we had to leave. When I finally got able to leave out of the hospital, the American Cancer Society paid our entire hotel bill from December to April.
Wow.
The entire bill.
Do you remember the name of the home that you were in where you said the rich people made donations?
The hospital? Memorial Sloan Kettering.
Okay.
In New York, Manhattan, Upper East Side.
Okay.
They were so kind to me. It was, I'm so grateful that I went there. And when we went to we stayed in an extended stay in Jersey because it was just way too expensive to stay in New York.
In New York.
And Memorial Sloan also had private car service. So I had private car service going to the hospital for my checkups. I had to do 3 to 4 a week.
Okay.
And it was
And they
always.
took care of all of that. So when you finally got, how long were you in the extended stay, the temporary housing?
It wasn't an extended stay. Was it extended stay? Yeah. I was there from December 23rd to April 23rd, and then I still couldn't leave.
So where were you going then?
I was scared. I had to pray because I was like, oh my God, where am I going to go? Because they was like, you still can't go home. So.
Because where were you living then? Where was home for you then?
L.A.
It was L.A. Okay.
Yeah. So what happened?
But you're taking your care and everything is happening in New York.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm glad I did that because I felt like if I would have got things done here, I would be dead.
So when you set up your GoFundMe or somebody set it up, you pulled the money to be able to take care of home back in L.A., like your rent or whatever you had going
I lost
on?
everything.
Really?
Yeah. I lost everything. I lost my apartment, and then, me and my the person I was dating at the time, we ended up having to move it in with a friend, and then that didn't work out, and then we ended up moving in with another friend, and then that didn't work out.
So this is after you were done in New York and went back to L.A.?
This is before pre-surgery.
Okay, got it.
And so when everything was done in New York, I moved to we stayed in a hotel in Jersey, and then once the contract was up, this church blessed me, St. James, Upper East Side, 71st and Madison, blessed me with an apartment that they owned, that they were associated with my hospital, and they let me stay in that apartment completely free from April to December 19th when I moved back to L.A.
Got it.
Completely free. Upper East Side.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I cried because I was like, this is the most expensive area in New York. Like when the Pope came, he was literally around the corner from me.
So when you were able to pull the money from the GoFundMe, since you didn't have the medical bills and that kind of thing, you were able to rebuild your life after that?
I still have that GoFundMe money. I just didn't have to use it.
Right.
Because I'm all generally frugal with my money anyway. I pay my bills on time. I think me losing everything made me realize that you need to have a nest egg because of things.
Anything can happen. Yeah.
And so I still have it.
So once you were out of the hospital, what was it like in terms of having to get a prosthetic? Because one of the things that I recently learned is you have to get sized for them. And if your weight changes, like if you gain weight or lose weight, you have to go and get resized again and get another one. So what was that process like? Was it difficult using it the first time? Is it painful?
They said I was a rare case for someone. There's only 1% of people in the world that have this particular cut. And when I went to
when you say cut, what do you mean? For the
cut.
prosthetic? Or where you were cut?
Yeah, because it's called a hemi something, or hip disarticulation.
Okay.
And it's only 1% of people in the entire
world that's been cut that way.
Like this.
Okay.
And so June of 2015 was when I went to see my prosthetist. But people don't know that you have to get a psych evaluation before you get it.
Really?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Until I went in there and I was like, why is all these people in this room?
So what's the thinking behind it? Why do
Because they said that people get these prosthetics because the insurance company, they go in wanting to deny it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, don't tell me that because they're going to approve mine. That was my attitude. And they said that your prosthetic costs $50,000.
For that one?
For all of this, it's $50,000.
And yours goes from your hip?
Yep, I'm literally sitting in a brace that I have to put around my
waist.
Okay. And I use my core to help me walk. Okay. Though my leg is a hydraulic leg.
Okay.
And so they said that there are too many people that they're finding out that are getting these legs, whether it's like mine or just in general, and they just throw them in the corner. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's not going to be me because I like to walk and I like to do things.
Right.
And so when they was like pushing my core and, pushing the stump and all that, and it was like, wow, you should be grateful that your doctor left your butt muscle. And I was like, what? because I requested that. And he said, yeah.
How did you know to request that?
Because when I got my second opinion, the doctor there showed me this 24-year-old guy who lost his leg the same way I did, and it was all gone. And I could not mentally deal with that. And I was like, well, why don't you save the muscle? And she was like, oh, it may have cancer too. I said, may or will.
Right.
And so when I got my surgery, before I got it, I asked, that was one of my requests. I said,
So she opted to have, the person that you're talking about that had the surgery like yours, she opted to have the butt removed as well as the leg. Just in the same way that some women, when they have breast cancer, instead of removing just the lump, they take the entire breast just to make sure.
Yeah,
okay.
And I was like, I don't know about that.
Okay.
And so luckily my insurance denied it. And so I couldn't get the surgery in Michigan. And so when I went to New York, I totally forgot that I was still paying for my New York insurance when I was living there. Because I'm one of those people that, and it's bad, that, they were billing my credit card, but I was like, okay.
Kind of like people get gym memberships and never cancel them.
Cell phones, whatever. I'm like, whatever. I can just pay.
So you still had insurance for New York?
And they paid for everything.
Well, that was a godsend.
You have no idea.
I
didn't have to pay for anything.
Yeah.
That surgery, the wheelchair, the prosthetic, nothing.
So let me ask you this. So was there any level of shame that you experienced, like once you were up and out and about, like socializing, going to events or going to the movies or whatever it is that you typically would do? Was there any shame? And the reason I ask that is because when I was 14, and this by far is not at all any comparison to what you've experienced, but when I was 14, I was bit by a dog. Yeah, and so I have keloidal skin.
Okay.
So like on my left calf, I have these two dog marks. Yeah, and so because I was 14, I was shorter than I am now. And so it overhealed. Keloiding is basically the overhealing of skin. And so as I got taller, it stretched. So they were just little punctures when the dog bit me. It was a German Shepherd. But they were just punctures. But then once it healed, it stretched. So for a long time in my life, I wouldn't even wear shorts. Because I remember my freshman year in college, I was in the lunchroom, I was in the line, and I remember these two girls behind me, girls that I didn't know. This was like the first week I was on campus. And I heard these two girls kind of like whispering to each other, and I heard one of them saying, look at his leg, like look at the back of his leg. And at this point, this was years later, so it was healed. But it just made me very self-conscious. And so from that point on, I stopped wearing shorts. Unless I was at a beach or on vacation or something like that. As I've gotten older, I've kind of rid myself of that. I don't really think about it because I've seen people, amputees, wearing shorts, and I remember thinking to myself, you have got to be kidding. Now, he has a prosthetic leg, and he's wearing shorts, and you have your legs, and you just have a scar, and you mean to tell me you don't want to wear shorts? You know what I mean? So those moments of vanity kick in. So did you have those moments where perhaps you were at the movies and or a baseball game or wherever, and you didn't want to get up because you didn't want people to see you walk?
What's interesting is when I didn't have my prosthetic, I didn't give a shit. I was so glad to be alive.
Yeah.
So I was going all around Manhattan with my wheelchair. But I was still dressed.
To the nines.
To the nines. and I was, and my friends would wheel me to the clubs, and I would be, standing there holding on to something, turning up, and people would not even know that I didn't have my legs.
Because I think sometimes fear amplifies our insecurities or our thoughts.
So
because
what happened, where my insecurity came in, where the little bit of shame came in, is when I did get the prosthetic, I was so happy. But then, at the time, I didn't have the foam thigh yet. And so it would just lay flat.
So the foam thigh goes between your quote-unquote nub and the...
No, the foam, it gives the illusion that I have a regular thigh.
Got it.
And so
So it's like a padding.
Right, it's a padding. So they created this foam thigh that you're looking at. And at first, it was just the rod. And anything I would wear would just be flat.
Yeah, because they didn't have the cushion to kind of give it that illusion.
It just looked really weird.
Yeah, it would be shrunken in that spot.
And
okay.
then I was like, ooh, that looks weird, because it just looked like I just had this pole.
Yeah.
And then I ended up, you know, through thank God for social media, I saw this girl named Mama Cax who lost her leg,
and that's how you learned about the phone.
Oh my gosh, she's been on Refinery, 29, and she's like global with the fact that she's an amputee. She wears her bathing suits with her one leg, and so she was in empowerment to me, and so I got over it really, really quick, and I just was like, you know what, you survived one of the most horrific things that can happen to somebody. Why do you feel shame?
Yeah.
So I got over it.
So you've never had a moment of like embarrassment?
No.
That's a good thing.
I mean, no.
What was that thought right there when you said?
I remember being in a conversation with someone that I was trying to date.
Okay.
And most people don't know that when they come to my house, I don't wear my prosthetic.
Okay.
And so they assumed
that you were going to have it on.
Right, that I came to the door without it on, thinking I'm going to test them to see,
so he thought that you were testing.
Yes. And I wasn't. I was like, I'm not wearing this.
I'm at home. I'm comfortable.
I'm at home.
Yeah.
And that was so bizarre to me. It was very.
And so how did it alter things? Or how did you know that?
Because they told me later.
He told you later.
And I was like, that's so stupid. Like.
So did it affect dating him? Like,
well,
did you?
Yeah, because we're not dating. Well, that was part of it. But I just thought it was just ridiculous because I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not vain like that.
So were you uncomfortable the first time that you had sex?
I haven't.
You haven't
had sex
since the surgery?
I haven't had sex in 3 years.
Oh, wow. And you think it's all because of that?
I haven't had sex. My sexual appetite
changed
before surgery.
Okay.
Because before surgery, I was on all these pain medicines.
Right.
And I was actually in a relationship. My partner left me
because of that.
I lost my leg.
Oh, wow.
So that added to the fact that I'm looking at my body being dramatically changed. And so I've been on dates and, kiss and stuff like that. But I haven't had sex because...
But you don't have the desire now.
No, I do.
You do now?
I do.
Okay. So your sex drive has changed.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Especially now being a vegan as well. Yeah, my sexual appetite is extremely high. But because there's still a part of me, because I lost my relationship when I had my leg, I'm more invested in wanting to meet someone that values what I'm bringing to the table and not let it just be about sex. I'm more interested in intimacy. Intimacy to me is everything because I love to kiss, and if you can't kiss, that's like bad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Kissing is important to me too. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I have the desire. I'm not ashamed of being naked or anything, but it's a lot for someone to
handle,
see,
to broach. Yeah.
Because it's not something that you normally see, that you're accustomed to.
Accustomed to seeing.
So I know that I'm a very unique taste.
So I've noticed, like I mentioned this earlier. I noticed, like on your Facebook, you've mentioned, I guess, almost like dating scenarios, things that happen. So,
like, my friends were like, you're a great guy, you're successful. Like, why wouldn't anybody want to date you? And I was like, I don't know. And so my friend grabbed my phone. I was at Gracias Madres, and it's a Mexican vegan place in West Hollywood. And he's like, I'm about to put you on Tinder. And I didn't know that Tinder was for all sexes. Yeah. Because originally it was just straight, male, female. And so he signed me up, and then next thing I know, my phone was going crazy, and it was all these super likes.
Okay.
And he was like, I said, what are these blue stars?
Yeah.
He was like, they're my super likes. And I was like, what does that mean? He said, that means that people really like you. Yeah. And I'm very transparent. I was like, I'm an amputee. I was misdiagnosed. I love life.
So none of those translated into...
No, LA is weird. Like,
so what do you think that is? Why do you think they would tag it super like, but then it not really materialize?
Brother, I have no idea. Like, let me tell you what's so weird. I live in LA, but when I attempt to open up the Tinder in other states outside of LA, like when I come here, I'm hot. Like, I'm like, what is that about? Or if I go to D.C. or New York, they just love me, and I don't know what that is. I couldn't even explain it. But I did, the last time I was here when I saw you, I actually met 3 people on Tinder, but only met 1 in person.
Okay.
And we went, on a lunch date in Midtown. And it was great, at least I thought.
Which is the gay epicenter in Atlanta,
Oh,
Midtown.
Yeah. So we went to a restaurant in Midtown. Rapport was great, at least I thought. And then when I got back, I was like, wow, it was really great to meet you. When can we do this again? And it was crickets. And I was like, well, maybe they went to sleep. So then by noon the next day, I was like, you had to have seen this text.
Right.
So I was like, hey, what's good? And it was like, you're a really cool guy, but I don't know if I can get past the fact that you are, an amputee.
And what does that do? What does that feel like?
To be honest, and I'm just being very transparent, I felt like shit.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, this is just a part of me. My character is way more important than me being an amputee. And it kind of hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And it kind of put me in a sad place, temporarily. And then, I'll just, pick myself up and just like, just look at it as a blessing.
Protection, not rejection.
Yes. And that's a good scenario.
Yeah.
I like that because I'm learning that when things don't work, it's working for a reason.
Absolutely.
That person is not meant for you.
Yeah.
So
And that's with anything.
Yeah. So I was fine with it. I was fine with it.
And I think what I'm thinking about is we've all probably been in situations or in conversations where someone says, well, do you think you could date somebody who was deaf?
Right.
Do you think you could date somebody who was blind? Do you think you could date somebody in a wheelchair? I think we've all kind of had those kinds of conversations. And there are always people who say, oh, I could definitely do that. But when it happens in real life, you know what I mean? So I don't always think that people are as honest in those kind of hypothetical scenarios as they pretend to be.
Right.
Dating is difficult, period.
It is, especially now in the digital age.
Absolutely. And then when you further delineate the category or demographic, when you talk about black, gay, men, it's like the dating pool is even smaller.
Yeah.
Because then you have those that participate in the drug scene,
right,
and those who aren't really comfortable in their own skin. You know what I mean? So you just have all of these different subcategories within that community.
But you know what's interesting, though, is that when I thought about it as a whole, I've never dated anybody other than black people. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that recently.
So this is an opportunity for you to expand your horizons.
My friend, and it's not that I don't want to.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, I want to see what it, feels like to date outside of my race. And my friends, like this person I used to date years ago, was like, oh, I had this dream that you're gonna be in this great relationship with an Italian man. And I'm like, why an Italian man? Like, he's like, I just saw this dream when you went to Italy and you fell in love and you lived happily ever after. And I was like, what? And so I'm not like, oh, I'm all about pro-black and I'm not going to date outside my race. It's just, I just haven't.
And, and my reason for not having dated outside my race, except for one instance, and I've mentioned this before on a podcast, it was a guy from El Salvador, and that was when I moved to L.A. But the majority of my adult life, I've lived in Atlanta. Right. And Atlanta is a black gay mecca. So I've never had to date outside of my race. I've never had to consider it. I've been on dates with white men before, but it's never gone beyond a date or two.
I haven't even been on a date.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with someone, Caucasian or whatever.
So let me ask you, have you, because I grew up with a guy that was deaf, and he went to a school for deaf people. And so he surrounded himself in a community with deaf people. And I notice a lot of times when people have certain... You kind of migrate to your quote-unquote community. Kind of in the same way with gay people. Like, I've dated gay men who no longer went to straight clubs. Like once he came out, he was like, "Oh, I don't do straight clubs anymore." So some people just kind of migrate to that specific community. Have you thought that perhaps you'd have better success dating if you dated another amputee, or do you feel like I shouldn't have to do that? That the world is my oyster and I should be able to date?
I just don't feel like I should do that. And I don't. To be honest, other than social media, I don't have any core amputee friends. I don't have any. And sometimes it's hard for me to hang out with my friends who have 2 human legs.
Just hanging out, yeah.
Because my mobility is slower, and I used to be the one that walked fast.
Right.
I was always the tall friend.
Yeah.
And now I'm the
I know when we used to hang out in LA, you be walking fast,
I
you know?
I got to get there.
Yeah.
And it just really, like, I remember when I was here last time, I was talking to my cousin, and I just started crying. And I was like, I feel like I'm in the way. I really feel like I'm in the way because I feel like I can't do what I used
to be able to do.
And that's why you'll see me doing a lot of stuff by myself because I don't like to be rushed. I want to just do stuff when it's convenient for me.
And then you probably don't want to feel like you're holding anybody else up.
Yeah, I feel like that sometimes, and every now and then I'll cry.
So has depression played a part?
I'm very
in your
fortunate
reality
I
now?
have depression because I have a very good core of friends and family, and I read a lot of books. And I love my Joyce Myers. I'm not religious, but I'm very, very spiritual.
Yeah.
And I have my stones and my crystals and stuff like that. But I'm very fortunate that I've never gotten depressed. I felt dark.
Yeah.
But I've never gotten to the point where I felt like
pitiful for yourself, or
like usually when people go through depression, they have these vices where they well, for me, when I got dark, my vice was masturbation.
Well, for me, it was sex with people that I didn't know. Right. And it wasn't a daily thing, but it occurred.
Yeah, mine was masturbation. Like, especially after surgery, I remember when I first did it, and it was so intense. I thought I was like, am I dying? Because your nerves are figuring things out.
Yeah.
Because I still have phantom pain. Because
what's phantom pain?
Phantom pain is when your your brain is telling your nerves what to do, but the limb is still not there.
Right.
So I still feel the presence of my foot, my knee, all of that.
Really?
Yes, and what happens is your nerves fire off, and it's so intense.
So it's painful?
Oh my God, yes. But it's
phantom pain.
It's weird because it's nerves.
So where's the pain?
It's like an illusion. It's mental.
Oh.
It's weird. It's so hard to explain it because.
And is that common with people that have lost limbs?
Yes. And there's this mirror technique that they tell you to do. That didn't work for me. So for me, I do edibles.
Okay. So tell me about the mirror.
Because
what is it called? Mirror?
I forgot what it's called, but basically you put a mirror. Since I lost my right leg, I would put the mirror on my right, and then I would look at the reflection of your left leg, right? So my brain can think that it's there.
Got it.
That shit don't work. It didn't work for me. I felt like it was the stupidest thing.
Right.
It don't work.
So you mentioned that before you could get your prosthetic, there's a requirement that you have to do mental evaluation. Do you think that you perhaps have experienced any type of post-traumatic stress as a result of losing your leg? Has anything kind of like triggered anything, or any type of nightmares or anything?
I think I got my post-traumatic stress disorder when I got the call from my ex.
That's the one that you were involved with and left?
Yeah.
Okay.
That mentally messed with me for months.
Because, you can think about a breakup. Even with any breakup, when you hear from that person again, it's like everything comes rushing back. Right. So I could imagine, because your breakup was a result, you believe, of you being an amputee. I felt like it was
part of it, but I don't think they really told me the truth.
Right.
My mom felt that at least they could have just waited till I got back to L.A. and then do it, at least see me through the process.
Got it.
And
because that's partnership.
Yeah. And so that was hard. that was harder for me to deal with that than my amputation.
Right.
Because then I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I wasn't, I never thought I was fine or anything like that, but I didn't think I was handsome. I just...
And a breakup in general makes you feel that way.
And then have a breakup with an amputation.
Yeah.
Like, I wore a lot of black, a lot. I just was like, whatever.
Right.
And then I would get into these, people would slide into my DMs. My DMs be lit, which is crazy. And people would slide into my DMs, and they would be, very attractive people. And I'm like, oh, I'm about to show my ex. I do it. And then these people weren't good for me.
Yeah.
They weren't good for me. And so after them 2 of those situations, I was like, But then what's so weird is like now when I meet people and now invest my time in dating them, it's like for some reason abruptly they just end the relationship. No kind of recourse. And I think that's just dating in general.
That is dating in general.
I don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
The inconsistencies of dating,
Why not just tell me what's up? Though I put up on social media that dude was like, I can't, date you because you're an amputee. There was a part of me I was grateful because he told me the truth.
He told you the truth.
He didn't have to tell me shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He could have been like the other ones, just kind of fizzled away.
And people have done that. I had someone I was dating and said that they couldn't date me because they were out. I'm a go-getter. I lost my leg, and I made them depressed because they weren't doing that with their life. And they had both of their limbs, and I didn't have mine. And I was like, I said, you're not going to put that on my spirit.
Right.
You are not going to put that on my spirit.
Yeah, I can't accept that.
And that's exactly what I said. I said, I hear you, but I'm not going to accept that.
Yeah.
Because you could have asked me for help. You could have did anything, but you're not going to put that on my spirit and make me feel depressed. That's not going to happen.
So what do you think this whole experience is designed to teach you? Like, so you said you're a really spiritual person. Have you kind of started looking at it from that perspective?
I feel like I have. I feel like I had to go through this because I'm a voice. I'm a vessel. Because there are amputees people have lost their legs in car accidents or whatever, and they're like this guy recently, he was like, my sister is friends with you on Instagram, and she showed me your page, and you are the person that helped me get through that.
Wow.
Because I was losing it. And I posted the comment on Facebook, and I was like, wow, I never knew that. And here I am thinking, don't nobody see me. Every now and then I'm like, nobody's really noticing me. But they are.
I think that God knows what we all need to grow us. And I think for some, it's the loss of a marriage, the loss of a child. It could be cancer. It could be HIV. It could be a breakup. For me, it was financial. I believe that God used finances to get my attention.
And I feel that he did that for me with my limb because I was all over the place. And, I will say I'm grateful for the experience that I had with my ex, and I don't think that they're a bad person. It happened, and I'm glad that it's released because, they're in a happy relationship now. Though I'm still single, I'm still happy. Because you got to be happy with yourself first before you can bring something into a relationship. So I don't have a problem with him anymore. Like, I'm over that.
So what are some of the things that you've learned about you through this process,
Patience. I've learned it's okay to speak your mind. It's okay to say no.
What about it's okay to need help and ask for help?
Yeah, it is. And it's okay to not make yourself available all the time because we tend to overextend ourselves a lot of time, especially me, because I don't like to see people, like if I know someone and they're hungry and they don't have food in their house, like, I'll buy you some food, but I'm not going to pay your rent. I mean, I've done that for people, but, they've paid me back.
Right.
But I was like, I can't get in the habit of doing that because sometimes people have to go through that cycle to know what it feels like.
It's the process.
Yeah, to be evicted or to have a car repossessed or something like that. And I know what it feels like to be thrown out. And luckily, when I lost my apartment in L.A., the manager was like, you know what? We'll just keep your security deposit, and we won't even put this on your credit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was.
Because they were sensitive or compassionate.
Yeah, because they was
too.
like, he was like, I don't have any control over it. It's a new new company. You're a couple of months behind, and I wasn't working. I just couldn't work at that point with the tumor because I was in so much pain.
Yeah.
And so when I think about it now, I'm actually grateful for that because I don't even have that on my credit. Because they could have been like, you still owe us thousands of dollars, and they didn't even follow me. They was just say, can you find some place to stay or whatever, and we'll just keep the security deposit and you'll be fine.
So they never filed like an official eviction.
No eviction or nothing.
Right.
I just signed a document that I'll be out in 30 days, and they'll just
Hold the security deposit.
And at the time, I was depressed, but then I was like, when I thought about it after I got myself together, I was like, wow, like I didn't even think that blessing was going to benefit me later. So I'm grateful for that. Really, really grateful for that.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story because undoubtedly someone will hear this conversation, and even if they're not going through what you're going through, perhaps it'll give them the courage or the strength to work their way through whatever it is that they're going through. Maybe they'll be able to see an out.
Yeah, because I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and I was like, isn't it so grateful that we don't look like what we've been
through? Listen. Absolutely. Because I've been through some things.
Like some shit.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. I get up with a sense of gratitude. I'm grateful that people have followed my journey, and I'm grateful that people tell people about me. You got to see this amazing guy who lost his leg and he's like still doing his thing. And though the mobility and stuff gets hard sometime, and it's extremely hot in this prosthetic at times in the summertime, but I'm alive to talk about it.
Right.
And I know that I've learned in this process to make yourself available to be a vessel to other people. And that's why I agreed to come on your show, because I know that somebody's going to hear this and be like, wow, what do I got to complain about?
Yeah.
So it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. Because my doctor told me, he was like, out of 30 years I've done this surgery, you are the most, not one of the most resilient patient that we've ever had. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, they kill themselves.
Yeah.
They go through depression. They just give up. They don't wear the prosthetic. And they actually asked me to
speak to people.
Yeah, it's called patient to patient.
Okay.
Because you can only relate to people
that are in your
yeah.
And
so at the time, I told them I couldn't do it because I still wasn't
there.
Though I was resilient.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I'm there now.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there at the time.
When you talked about the difficulty using or dumping the colostomy bag, that may be part of your journey. That may be part of your story for you to invent a seamless way of using that, because you're the customer.
Yeah.
And that's a market. There's a market for that.
Yeah.
So
I was like, I'm in this, and then I would be in like the Whole Foods restaurant.
Yeah.
When I would have to dump it.
Yeah.
And with a client, and I'm like, oh, this is so embarrassing. And I would be in there for 15 minutes.
Right.
And it's like, are you okay?
So
like,
you dump it, but you're switching out, or you just dumping it and then
set up where it's for you to dump it out,
and then just continue using it.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's when you change it when it starts itching.
Okay.
And
from the tape or something on your
like
skin.
This really super tape that was in it's shaped like a donut, and it was strong tape, but you have to let it breathe because it will irritate your skin, and that was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
Tell everybody how they can find you and find your story. What's your social media?
Well, I'm the editor-in-chief of Obvious Magazine, so you can find us on Instagram at Obvious Mag, and on Facebook as well. And my personal Instagram is Jerris Mogul, and I'm on Twitter, but I don't tweet that much, but it's just Jerris, my first name, Jeris. And you can go to my website at jerrismadison.com.
Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Thank you guys for listening. Please share this podcast with your friends, your family, your network. Subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube. Wherever you're listening, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for listening. Be safe. Keep loving yourself.